Today, we're diving into one of history's true giants, the Ottoman Empire. I mean, this was one of the most dominant and longest-lasting powers the world has ever seen. For 600 years, a single state shaped the story of not one, not two, but three different continents.
I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. 623 years. To put that in perspective, that's more than double the entire history of the United States. It's just a mind-boggling amount of time for one empire to rule continuously.
And you know, the scale of this thing was just immense. At its absolute peak, the Ottoman flag was flying over huge territories. We're talking from the Balkans in Europe, all the way across North Africa, and deep into the Middle East. Make no mistake, this was a true global superpower of its day.
So that really brings us to the core questions we're going to tackle. How on earth did a small tribe build one of history's greatest empires? And how did it all come crashing down? That's what we're here to find out. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off right around the year 1299. The empire actually gets its name from its founder, a tribal leader called Osman I. And what he did was carve out a small state, they called it a beylik, from the crumbling pieces of other powers in the region. Now, one of the Ottomans' earliest and, frankly, most powerful innovations was this group called the Janissaries. And look, this was not just some group of part-time soldiers. We're talking about a professional, salaried, standing army, the very first of its kind in Europe. And on the battlefield, they were absolutely terrifying. So you might be asking, how were these guys created? Well, the Ottomans had a system that was, well, it was brutal but incredibly effective. They would take children from conquered Christian lands, convert them to Islam, and then train them from a super young age to be these elite slave soldiers. Their loyalty was to one person and one person only, the Sultan. They were even forbidden from marrying, so their entire life was the military. And this system, it created a disciplined, almost fanatical fighting force that really powered the early Ottoman expansion. And all of this power brings us to a truly pivotal moment, not just for the Ottomans, but for world history, the fall of Constantinople in 1453. For centuries, Ottoman leaders had dreamed of taking this legendary city. And then this young Sultan, Mehmed II, he does the impossible. He brings in these massive, newly engineered cannons, literally shatters the city's so-called unbreakable walls, and remakes this ancient Christian capital into the brand new heart of his Muslim empire, a total game changer. So, after conquering Constantinople, the empire's power just kept on soaring. It eventually reached its absolute peak in the 16th century, all under its most famous and longest-reigning ruler, Sultan Suleiman I.
And what's really interesting about Suleiman is that his reign kind of had two different sides to it. To the people in the West, he was known as Suleiman the Magnificent, for his unstoppable military campaigns and just the incredible splendor of his court. But to his own people, he was Kanuni, which means the lawgiver.
And this right here, this gives us a crucial clue to the empire's longevity. See, his most lasting achievement probably wasn't on the battlefield at all. It was his complete overhaul of the legal system. He created this incredibly comprehensive code of laws that brought order and stability to a huge, diverse population. And this system was so effective, it stayed in place for over 300 years.
And while he was this formidable conqueror, a quote like this adds a really fascinating layer to his character. After he defeated the Hungarian army, he came across the body of their king, Louis II, who was super young. And Suleiman actually expressed this regret. It's just a rare human moment of reflection that shows you the complex person behind the big imperial title.
But, of course, no golden age lasts forever. After Suleiman died, the empire didn't just collapse overnight. That's not how it works. Instead, it entered this long, slow, grinding period of stagnation and decline that would actually last for centuries.
So the question is, what happened? Why did an empire that seemed totally invincible start to show cracks in its foundation? Well, the answer isn't just one thing. It's a whole combination of pressures building up over a very long time.
So you had pressures coming from both the inside and the outside. Internally, remember those elite Janissaries? Well, the empire's greatest strength became a double-edged sword. They got so powerful they basically became kingmakers, causing constant instability and revolts. And externally, the Ottomans got stuck in a series of really costly losing wars against their European rivals, who were getting stronger. On top of all that, high taxes and inflation were gutting the economy, and the whole focus of the empire shifted from, profitable conquest to just the expensive job of defending the borders they already had.
By the time we get to the 19th century, this long, slow decline earned the empire a pretty grim nickname among the other European powers, the sick man of Europe. And that nickname really captured it perfectly. Here was this once mighty power that was now losing territory and just falling hopelessly behind a modernizing, industrializing Europe.
Then, in the early 20th century, that sickness suddenly became terminal. Those centuries of slow decline, they hit hyperdrive, and it all led to a shockingly swift and total collapse.
And then bam, 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 the final dominoes just fell with stunning speed. In 1908, you have the Young Turk Revolution, which forces the Sultan to restore the constitution. Just a couple of years later, the disastrous Balkan Wars happen, and the empire loses almost all of its territory in Europe. Then comes the really catastrophic decision to enter World War I on the side of Germany. That leads to total defeat in 1918. And by 1922, it's just over. The very last sultan is sent into exile, and the 600-year-old sultanate is officially abolished. Just like that.
But the story doesn't completely end there. You see, out of the ashes of that defeated empire, a new nationalist movement rose up. They ended up fighting what's known as the Turkish War of Independence, against both the Allied occupying forces and what was left of the Sultan's old government.
And that brutal, difficult war led directly to a new beginning. In 1923, the Republic of Turkey was officially declared. A new, modern, secular nation-state was born. And with that, the Ottoman Empire was formally consigned to the history books.
So, we're left with this final, big question to think about. When an empire that was that vast, and that lasted for that long, just disappears from the map, what does it leave behind? Well, its legacy can still be felt today. You can see it in the cultures, the borders, the politics, and even the religions of dozens of modern countries all across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. It's a lasting echo of a truly colossal power.